literary do you have no, what was your degree in? Oh, really? Because you gave the character English and history of art. You're like God, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's very different, yeah. Mhm. Well, history of art's fun. So, eh, well, yeah, the middle class finishing school, right? Yeah. So I haven't told you in advance, I'm asking you this question, but this is one of my obsessions is aphantasia, picturing or not picturing images inside your head. You did art history, you write novels, you're thinking about imagery. Do you visualize what you're writing while you write? And then describe what you're seeing? Mhm. Ooh, s are you hearing them spoken inside your head while you see, my head, it turns out is quite weird. It's just an empty void. I just have a data stream. I had no idea other people's heads were so sort of polyphonic and wonderful. No, that's fascinating. And again, all English teachers out there, hackable tips for working with heads, because it turns out children's heads are full of voices and images and things as well. So get them to play the dialogue and transcribe it. I think that's a beautiful idea. How do you feel about dialogue tags? So if it says, "Hello," Marie said. "Greetings," Bob shouted. "No," Marie muttered. Yes, but do you think we should just stop them from doing those tags? Do you think we should just have them say "said"? Can you please confirm? Yeah. There you go, everyone. I've got professional author to say I always say "said," and that's the end of it, right? No variation from that. Um, exactly, and that's actually the larger and more intelligent point, isn't it? That well-written dialogue doesn't need descriptors, giving you adverbs for how things were done. Yeah, unless you'll call Matt McCarthy in The Road, a book which I'm teaching again this year, in which it's use of dialogue. Have you read McCarthy? Yeah. Yeah. No, no. Yeah, sorry, I was just lost in contemplation of his dialogue there for a moment. Right, what was your experience of creative writing at school? Was it useful to you? Did so what how did that work? Right. Yeah. No. Ooh, tell us about your favorite English teacher, your most inspirational English teacher. We love these stories. Ah, yeah, just a minor quibble. It's just all the language, yeah. I love the sound of this one, yeah. Wow, okay, you sure you're not just remembering Brideshead Revisited or something where he said yeah, and hungover and rumpled, adorably rumpled. Yeah, steam iron the whole lad, as someone said about GK Chesterton. So oh, that's a lovely thing to do. So did they invite you? Did you offer yourself as sort of, "Here"? Do art history and, yeah, and live in oh, you live in a writers' commune, I think. I have so many things I want to ask you, okay. Was that ooh, uh-huh. Sorry, I was gonna, A, that's fascinating, and B, I was gonna say something about, like, I think the big money's in, pop culture writing, isn't it, rather than novels? It's hard to get yeah. Yeah. That is a beautiful sentence that I'll also be stealing. Anybody transcribing great lines here, I find it easier to write truthfully when it's made up is another thing to tell your students and yourself. Do you ever dictate? Do you ever use like transcription software, like, or no? While the dialogue plays inside your head and stuff. Yeah. Do you know, by the way, what the other thing that periodically novelists, especially novelists for children, um, turn up in normally the Guardian, saying that the government's changes to primary school teaching curriculum have ruined creativity for children. That children can no longer be creative, and no one ever quite seems to be able to define what they mean by creative, or the creative process, or how children would benefit from a different approach. And the thing that gets most villainized is the fronted adverbial. So I did ask you, do you have any opinions on the phrase fronted adverbial, or are you blissfully no? I'm imagining you in your imagined bow tie with your Homer under one arm, wanting to write about the past participle and being rudely. Mhm. Right. I think. And what would you, if you were going to teach creative writing, if you were going to stand with a group of 11-year-olds and say, let's write a story, how how would you go about that? Less sweary? Right. Oh, I love that. Right, everyone steal that too. So start with a real life incident and then have people do what you didn't do. Yeah, I start with anecdotes. The exam boards despise it when they're too fictional. They don't want genre fiction, they don't want ninjas, they don't want vampires. They're like, no. It has to be about real life. Hashtag real life. Which takes us to one of the questions that John Palmer had for you, which is why don't you write sci-fi? Mm, mm. But I bet the ghost would still be very everyday and making jokes and oh no. Eugene is commenting. Eugene, who previously was telling us about his grandfather's brain tumor that changed his personality, is saying that of course you did, Eugene. I wrote about genetically engineered cops in his GCSE exams. Do you think it was a good story, Eugene? Everyone else is saying, of course you did, Eugene. Uh, um, I said I was going to ask you about Clarissa as well. I found a way to hack the news. So in like 5 minutes, in 3 minutes at 10, I'm going to play the news. But I was very excited to find out that you'd read Clarissa, which, for those of you who don't know about it, is how many pages is it? 1,500? It's So, for those of you who don't know, it's Samuel Richardson. Is it 1760s? Uh, he'd written a much shorter book called Pamela, which was insanely popular, and then he wrote Clarissa. No, not at all as good. I agree. And then he wrote Clarissa, which takes place just about in real time. It's written at such length. It's all epistolary, and it's a young woman who's essentially, abducted, taken to a brothel, and then attempted to be seduced by a really very appealing monster for the first half of the book. Then he rapes her, and then she dies for what, 700 pages? My God, the woman dies for a long time, and she writes letters about it. She reflects upon it. And it's got this wonderful materiality of writing and thinking. I think my favorite bit is at some point someone's like, "Oh no, I've spilled the ink," and it's all dramatic. And it's happening as it happens. It's supposed to be this sort of collection of material evidence of this woman's agonizingly slow death. Um, and my favorite line from your essay on it was, she now views seemingly good men as ones who haven't yet been found out. Uh, oh yeah. Mm. Yeah, would you recommend it to anyone? And by the way, have you read Sir Charles Grandison? And I would just say, don't. I, I did an English degree, and for some reason, I was drawn to the 18th century and to its monstrously large tomes. So yeah, I read all of Sir Charles Grandison. It was ooh, yeah. Well, once you get into your Cecilias and your Camillas, everyone's first book is clear signs of masochism. Someone's saying, yeah. I don't know. That's the thing about Pinchot and the big 20th century boys is that they're much shorter. Right, I'm going to try and play the news. Basically, you'll still be on mic while I'm on the news, so avoid, I don't know, swearing at the news or something. This might not work, but then again, it might.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News with Gail Glenn. An article in the Times Educational Supplement has highlighted the emotional load being carried by schools following the pandemic. According to Jamie Smith, Director of Mental Health and Wellbeing in Schools at the Anna Freud Centre, schools provided a place of safety and stability for young people and families, becoming anchors for the community. Evidence tells us that young people who are living in poverty, LGBTQ young people, Black and minoritised young people, girls and young women have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, and they're all bringing that to school, says Smith. So schools are carrying that extra emotional load. Ms. Smith recognised the burden that the pandemic has placed on school staff and stated, "The pandemic has brought with it enormous challenges for the education system. I think it is also important just to stop and reflect for a moment and just think about what schools have dealt with for the last 18 months, she says. It's important to say that schools never closed. Teachers and school leaders were open throughout, and they were prioritising children. They were really being that place of safety and stability and routine, and actually being an anchor for communities and keeping children and families going. I think that one of the barriers that we see often is that teachers still feel reticent to have those conversations," says Smith. 57% of school staff still say they didn't want to talk to their employer about their stress levels or about their well-being. So we need to do something about shifting that culture and opening the conversations. In Northern Ireland, the Education Secretary, Michelle McElveen, is facing growing calls to follow the lead of England and Scotland and introduce CO2 monitors in all educational settings. The NAS UWT has called on Ms McElveen to take firm action to increase airflow in crowded classrooms and limit the threat of further COVID disruption to learning. Dr. Patrick Roach, General Secretary of the NAS UWT, added, "The NAS UWT believes that CO2 monitors should be in place in every school as part of an effective COVID safety response. Many teachers are still working in rooms which have the windows sealed shut, yet we know that good ventilation is a key mitigation in helping to reduce the spread of COVID and other viruses in indoor environments. Given the recent warnings we have heard from the Chief Medical Officer that the autumn and winter could be a very difficult period again for Northern Ireland, it's important that preemptive action is taken in schools. A commitment from ministers to a fund to provide enhanced ventilation, monitoring and support with air filtration would be an extremely positive move. It would be reassuring to those working within our schools and be reassuring for many parents. The Department for Education has not yet responded to the call." This has been your daily education news briefing.
Right, and we're back. I'm sorry to everyone out there. There was a very muffled noise, but hopefully you got some of it. Hi again, Rob. Thank you very much for hanging around while we listen to the very quiet news. Let's see. So I just asked you about Clarissa. Oh, this was your line that I really loved from that Clarissa article. Apparently, likable men do monstrous things unchallenged, which I thought was really interesting in relation to how you talked about your book and masculinity in your book and that atavistic masculinity. So is part of you an 18th century rake? Do you have the potential to be a monster? The and yet he's such an appealing character, isn't he? That's yeah. Evil is funny is an interesting way of thinking about it, because otherwise why would it be charming? And that, there's J.K. Rowling's politics, there's et cetera, but the actually uninteresting main evil guy is the big weakness there, I think, as it is in so many things. It's like, don't make them funny, make them charming. Otherwise, just go home. Right, yeah, and perhaps too much fun. Exactly. I'm gonna ask you a question that was meant as a joke. There are 3 questions, which was 2 questions assumed to be the things that writers get asked all the time. First off, where do you get your ideas from? Well, you've covered that beautifully. But the second one, how much money do you make? Students want to know this. People want to know what is the model for compensation in publishing? Mhm. Pay for your retirement. Mhm. Instead of a day away from disaster. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, you didn't become a Quillette guy, so yeah, it's very true. I think people just want to shout their opinions, yeah. What did you write for The Spectator? I didn't see your Spectator piece. Mm. Well, and that to go back to the real world readers model, that does matter, doesn't it? How you're being framed. I mean, you can't control people's reception of you in fiction, but actually the forum in which you're published makes an enormous amount of difference. Did you ever, having read, you know, a good half of your Guardian article, did you ever get PIP money? Did they just Jesus, they just yeah, and the more the more dignity you put up while dealing with the system, the less likely you are to be found worthy of receiving benefits from that system. Yeah. No, so it was a the Guardian piece, to anyone listening who hasn't read it, and again, I'll put a link out to it. It's very you. Well, I'm now going to confidently claim to be an expert on your style. In that it is, you know, shocking, polemic on the one hand, but also profoundly funny, in small semantic ways on the other. But you can't not make jokes. You're always making jokes, which yeah. Yeah, I think making ourselves laugh is always yeah, always the best way to know what's going to work for readers. These ones are all from a teacher called Sputnik Steve, who is a pastoral leader, a devout man, a curious man, but also a deeply ridiculous man. So I'm going to ask you his dumb questions. Is a great guy. Out of all the words in the book, what's your favorite? Mm. Yeah, I gave you the questions yesterday. Mm. I'm shocked. There's a the page I happen to have open. There's a lovely little bit, the bit where you're calling Marie to say that your character is calling Marie to say that actually I've got this terrible thing has happened. And you say here, there's always a strange sort of fun in giving bad news, like Schadenfreude. If you could have Schadenfreude against yourself. So, see, you're very funny. It's beautiful. Schadenfreude against yourself is just always spectacular. But also to go back to my many nearly dying moments, I recognize that emotion, that thing where you can say somehow smugly, I'm dying right now. And also be horrified, but there's a certain kind of like immense narrative power in being at the center of a story. So exciting, I found anyway. Yeah. Yes, that's true, but they're taking care of it. I don't have to become a better person for this or anything. I just need to lie down and go into a coma for a while. Yeah. Yeah, I had the one of the times I nearly died. I had this massive exploding ectopic pregnancy, and the next time I got pregnant in the same dysfunctional, broken, my body wants to kill me way, they sent me up to the chemo ward because the drug they give you is a methotrexate, which stops cell growth, but it's a powerful chemo drug. So I had to go up to the chemo ward. This in Philadelphia to be given that. And of course, the rest of the chemo ward was full of people with genuine cancer. And because I was only 26, they all looked at me with just the most sympathy. I was the most popular girl on the chemo ward because I was the most tragic. There's there's something to be said for being young and beautiful. And I'm it's you I'm calling young and beautiful here, by the way. And 30 with a tragic, brain explosion rather than yeah. No one tells you this, see, about tragically nearly dying when you're young and attractive. It's like there's a lot of drama to it that you can wrench out good bits from it. It can still feed the ego. Uh, exactly, and stories that you tell yourself about yourself make life much easier to live. If you could be any cooking utensil, question from the same man, what cooking utensil would you be and why? Mm. A wooden spoon or some. So you so you're picking a spoon on the basis that you have a desperate need to be liked? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. The wooden spoon comforts the afflicted is another of your beautiful phrases that I hope someone out there is writing down and tweeting out. Thank you very much. Um, who's your favorite Doctor Who? Again, another Steve question. Mm. Oh, you like Sylvester McCoy? That's 'cause you're 10 years younger than me. Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Uh-uh. Mm. Tom Baker was my childhood Doctor Who, so I endorse thoroughly. Yeah. Plus yeah. Which is, yeah, true, a chaotic energy that ties back to your influential English teacher. So I'm, yeah, seeing these chaotic, irresponsible, slightly drunk, creative men have played important roles in your life. Got a question from George Napthine who asked, he's got a year five class, so they're 9 year olds, and he loves to read just interesting books with them. And he says, what book would you read to a class of year nines, 9 year olds rather? No party Nazis, please. He reads everything with them. So he's just done The Secret Garden with them. So he's more than happy to do, 19th century weird novels about unlikable children in Yorkshire. What would you recommend? Mm. I think you can. If it's a whole class reader, then he'll be reading it to them so they can be carried along with it. And yeah. Ooh. George is telling me that The Secret Garden is from 1911, and I am making rude fingers at my monitor. Thanks, George. Um, yeah, so there you go, George. Your suggestions there are. I actually think the Douglas Adams one's really interesting. There, maybe the. Uh, yeah, you're talking to an English teacher, so we're all sneery about Williams. Go, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Which is why Mr. Napthine loves to feed them a wide range of books. Another Steve question now. What is your main character's favorite type of pasta? I do apologize for Steve, but I said I would ask the questions. Yeah. Which of the Italian numbered pasta types? Is it farfalle or yeah, either, both? Really? So this is about needing people to like you again, right? So wooden spoon because everyone loves it and it's a consolation prize for the sick at heart. Pasta. What about lasagna? Fair, but you can enjoy it. Doesn't say which is your favorite. I Sorry, I'm still. What's the exact complication level of pasta that would not be too much of an ask to have someone make for you? Stuffed ricotta. Oh, that's just crazy. No, no. Mm. What kitchen utensil would you liken yourself to if you were dying? just tragically snapped off, and then we would all that makes the reader want to read on because of the symbolism of the broken spoon. I like it. Steve's last question is very Steve and stupid, but again, I'm still asking you this question. Where did Steve leave his keys? I think it is. Yeah. The real No, no, I'm just gonna take that as literal. And the real keys are the friends we made along the way, of course, aren't they? Yeah. I'm not sure anything could unlock Steve's heart. Someone asked, Bish Bash Boogie says, "What are you reading at the moment?" Mm. Uh-huh. I'll see if I can find it while you're talking. Oh, I saw you were reading that. Isn't that Imperial Nostalgia? Is it that one? Yeah, yeah. Mm. It's a very pastoral theme in the novels you're reading here. So the wolf in the woods, the woodcock. Mm. What both dead people and your acquaintances. All of those books, absolutely. Uh, Nick asks what your favorite short story is. Mm. Oh, I love him. He's my favorite. I don't know how to say his last name. I thought it was maybe Buttlemy, but he's micro, the micro fiction, right? Mm, mm. Yeah, I adore. So anybody who doesn't know Donald Bartel, not Bartlemy, we don't know. We're just making it up. Microfiction, surreal fiction, but just beautiful. So my favorite line of his is the one about the writing workshop with the leader of it keeps telling them about Sinbad and stuff, and the students aren't listening at all. And he says, I actually have it somewhere on my desktop, so I'm going to read it. There's nothing out there, they said. Wrong, I said. Absolutely wrong. There are waltzes, sword canes, and sea rack, dazzling to the eyes. Bloody love. Yeah. Thanks. And favorite 19th century short story author? Yeah, I think it's legally necessary to say Chekhov. So yeah, I did. Yes. Ooh, I've never read any. I hear good things about. So what flavor? Small lives led by women in distressing circumstance, or ah, emotionally distressing circumstances. Oh, fun. All right, that's good to know. Right, we've only got 4 minutes left, so I'm just looking to see anything else that's been asked of you. Uh, we've discussed masculinity. Oh, here's one. Carolina says, "How does the main character's illness contribute to the key idea of the narrative? Why did you choose to use humor in the novel, and why badgers?" Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah. Did you did you kill a badger? Okay. Okay. As long as we've cleared that up. A night in the woods with badgers. I was thinking maybe something to go back to the very beginning and how I found you on Twitter in the first place to Flory Gill about a really? Oh, fantastic. I would love to read that. That'd be beautiful. And also it ties to, do you remember when everyone read Cat Lady a couple of years ago? The New Yorker short story. And then do you remember like 2 weeks ago when everyone lost their minds at Cat Lady because it turned out she was using her friend's life or something and then she was cancelled and it was all very dramatic. Okay, that's another thing that I think we should all note. None of you are safe around writers, but giving people the right response, a blog response, is a fascinating way to deal with the fact that they're all on some level chum for the shark of your imagination, right? Yeah, yeah. You're definitely heartbreak admin is also a beautiful phrase. You should. I hope you're writing down your own greatest moments during this. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And on which beautiful final note, I'm going to wrap us up now. It's time to go. Normally I have some dramatic, you've been listening to music, but none of the sounds working today. So imagine it for yourselves, people. Thank you so much for coming on. We've been talking to, it was gorgeous. You are Rob Paulk. Your book is Animal Lovers, published by Sandstone Press. I think we bought every copy that Amazon had, but hopefully they've restocked now, or you can get it directly. Excellent. Make sure you leave a review because that matters. All right, excellent. Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. Goodbye, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Not you, unless you want to come back, which you're always welcome to. Great. Thank you. Bye.